to Movie Diary. Look, I like watching weird, different, uncomfortable, provocative films. Probably more than the next person. Probably because I've watched so many movies over my life. I've seen so many movies that follow conventional paths, so I'm always keen to see something different. The film I'm going to talk about tonight, that I watched last night, definitely fits that bill. It's a film called Enter the Void, made by Gaspar Noé. I went in aware of his reputation after seeing Irreversible about 20 years ago, the film that he's probably most known for. That film was probably one of the most difficult films to watch that I've experienced. It's it's not really a film that you watch. It is something that you just experience. So this film is similarly quite different and is an experience. I'll try and summarize it, but it's really one that you have to see for yourself. Quick plot summary. It's set in Tokyo. We follow Oscar, who's a young American drug dealer. He's doing quite well for himself. He's living with his sister Linda, and pretty early in the film, he's betrayed during a drug deal, and he's shot and killed. That might sound like a plot spoiler, but it's really not. The majority of the film happens after this event. Yes, this is a pivotal event, but it's really not critical to the story. What happens then is that his consciousness leaves his body and begins drifting through Tokyo. Now, the film follows him through his memories, both previous to his death, but it also follows him during the aftermath of his death. So we get to see his memories, we get to see his childhood, including many traumatic events, some parallel timelines, and those friends of his and his sister that are affected after his death. Starts out as a fairly conventional crime story, becomes a floating meditation on death, grief, and memory. There are quite different things in this film, mainly with the camera placement, apart from the actual story and themes. Now, the opening credits, straight away we get into this sensory overload. I haven't seen too many films that start like this, with extreme strobe lighting, flashing topography, bullet-like sound effects, and the credits are moving so fast you can hardly read them. Immediately, I felt that, okay, this isn't going to be conventional cinema. I already knew that, but if you just sat down and thought, what's this? Straight away, you're in no doubt. So anyone sensitive to flashing lights should probably avoid this film. It happens throughout. I think the key point here is that Noé conditions the audience into the film's rhythm from the get-go. It's set in Tokyo, as I said, and we get an incredible bird's eye view of Tokyo for the most part. I haven't been to Tokyo, but it seems to be beautiful, hypnotic, seductive, spiritually dangerous as well. I can sum it up as, from this film anyway, as a neon paradise on the surface, but underneath it feels a bit emotionally hollow and consuming. I actually liken it to a Venus flytrap. It attracts damaged people and then slowly consumes them, in this film anyway. So Tokyo is a pivotal character in this film. If anything, it's the main character. Now, Oscar's death, when that occurs, the film really transforms. Up until then, yes, it is odd because the filming is all occurring directly behind his head. So it's like we're getting a POV view directly behind his head. So we're not looking out from his eyes, but we're just following him around. He takes some drugs early on. He has to go and meet a friend of his, and it's a setup. He gets shot by the police. He's dead. From then on, everything changes. We get the floating consciousness. So we get this sensation that we're floating over buildings and coming down and watching pivotal characters in Oscar's life and how they're reacting and how his death is affecting them. Then, parallel to this, we're going backwards in time. He's exploring his memories. How did he get to this point? What's his life been about? How did it end like this? So a lot of spiritual drifting, and the camera is moving above streets, through apartments, across timelines. It did actually remind me of 2001: A Space Odyssey at times, in as much as that last, 25, 30 minutes of Space Odyssey, where the character is just flying over those spacescapes with flashing colors everywhere, traveling through time. It feels a little bit like that at times. That's what it reminded me of anyway. The camera work is extraordinary. Like I said, most of the film shot overhead, behind his head. Eventually, it stops feeling experimental and just starts feeling hypnotic. And I kept watching the film, wondering how this was going to play out. And I guess at some point I stopped watching the film and started floating through it with him. And it's quite unusual when it first starts happening, but you get used to it, and then it's really an experience. I was quite taken by Paz de la Huerta, who plays Linda, Oscar's sister. She was really the emotional core of the film for me, and easily the most compelling performance in the film. I think what made her so effective for me is that she showed a real freedom of spirit, also a vulnerability, an emotional openness that we can react to and relate to, some unpredictability. But I think there's something enchanting but also deeply sad about her. She comes to Tokyo at the behest of Oscar. She's really keen to be there. They're super close. They grew up through a lot of trauma, which I won't get into here, but you can understand after you see their history as to why they're so close. And her grief after her brother's death really, really grounded the movie emotionally for me. I think if I could sum it up, I'd say that Linda becomes the human anchor in a film that's otherwise kind of drifting through a lot of abstraction and hallucinations. So there is a lot of childhood trauma in this film. I won't ruin it by saying what that is, but it is devastating. It's not just shocking, it's emotionally crushing as well. And it leads to a childhood blood oath between the siblings, which really drives the emotional engine of the film. When you see what happens, that really bonds them, it's done exceptionally well in a technical sense, but it looks so real that it's quite upsetting. So and I think once we understand their bond, you can see why, even after his death, that Oscar's trying to keep his promise to Linda that that if he did pass away, he'd always come back, and that was their oath. So look, obviously, Gaspar Noé's films have extreme content. If you know anything about Irreversible, it was famous for that. Again, this film is quite different to that. I felt like Irreversible was really intentionally provocative and pushed the envelope as far as it could. This one does too at times, but I feel like it's making an artistic statement more than just trying to be shocking. It's absolutely not for the faint-hearted. And why is because there's a lot of graphic imagery to do with sexuality. There's an actual abortion scene. The love hotel sequences are pretty full on. There's some camera work inside a woman's body while she's having intercourse. I think it's done exceptionally artistically. Like I said, I didn't find it shocking, but some people no doubt will. And I think the film constantly removes the distance between the audience and the experience, so you feel like you're actually there, which can be a bit upsetting if this content is traumatic for you. I think my main thought about the extreme content is that the film wants you suspended inside the trauma rather than just safely sitting back and observing it. And that's what I signed up for, and that's what I got. Despite all the provocation, I do think the film's surprisingly heartfelt. At its core, this is a film about grief. It's about attachment, trauma, mortality, the connection between siblings, and Oscar's wasted life felt really tragic to me, despite his obvious flaws and some bad decisions that he makes. When you go back and look at his history of how he grew up, it all kind of makes sense, and it's very sad. So I feel like the comparison with Irreversible probably doesn't help this film. Maybe it helps. Maybe it helps this film in so much as people want to see it, because Irreversible was so shocking and controversial. Like I've already touched on, this one's a lot more melancholic and reflective. It's really not about cruelty. It's about consciousness and memory and the spirit world. And I think it's very successful. It had an impact on me, and it's a film I'll never forget. The running time is an interesting one. It goes for 2 hours and 40 minutes. It didn't feel like that to me. It felt like around 2 hours. I think once the film's rhythm takes hold, it really becomes trance-like, and you get used to the pacing, and it kind of makes sense, and it never really lagged for me. So look, I found it dazzling, disturbing, hypnotic, and emotional, pretty much all at once. A lot of waves in this film. You're really riding that wave with the various characters. Even though this film explored a lot of very dark places, I actually found its final message unexpectedly hopeful as well. And I think the takeaway is that it suggests that even after trauma and people wasting their lives, that there's still a possibility of renewal and connection in other ways. And if you see this movie, you'll know what I mean by the way it ends. So look, love this film. It's an experience. That's increasingly what I want to get out of watching films. And this one really isn't about death. It's about what emotionally survives after death. So if you like adventurous filmmaking, you want something different, and you really want to feel something when you're sitting there watching a film, I definitely recommend this one to you. All right, I hope you go and check it out, and see you next time.